Agreed. Oh, I gotta get my mic in. I don't have my right mic in today. Sorry about that. Have to give you my morning moniker, but I don't have my mic in. There it is. There we are. All right. Greetings and salutations, one and all. This is Phoenix, your Astro Weatherman. We're back. My Tuesday is your Tuesday is my Monday. That's right. You coming up here? You coming up here? Let's go. Come on. Your adoring crowd wants to see you. Come on. Let's go. Here she is. The Astro Weather Cat. So Jasper is the Astro Cat, and Peachy is the Astro Weather Cat. By the way, she's losing her girlish figure. Yes, you like to eat, don't you? You're a big eater. All right, who do we have here? Mr. Michael Sisternino. What's going on, Michael? Good to see you. DJ Pebblestone, Kelly B, Scott Jersey, buongiorno. Buongiorno. Hey, Scott. Nice win by those Brownies. You got Crazy Jameis as your quarterback now. Never a dull moment there. Sweet Woodruff. What's happening, Sweet? Misbehaving too. Wits Entropy. Buenos. Let's make it a great day. I'm with you. Christina Jurzik. What's happening, CJ? Soul Traveler. Janice Phillips. Not sleeping well lately. Maybe some 12th house activity. Rainbows and butterflies. Charlie. Yes, ballot boxes are burning. The system is in entropy. It is an entropy. Warlunda. Green Eyed Crow. T. Jordan in the house. Lana Walker, Aaron L., Laura E., Mood Sprout. You just lost power for unknown reason. Sounds mysterious. California Contrarian, K2. What's happening? Maya Rose is here. There she is, the lovely and talented one. Saving Austin. Sharon Lewis from Florida. My man Ryan. What's going on, Ryan? Sign up, become a member of Locals. Yes, because on Halloween, guess what? We'll be doing a deep dive Halloween night on The Devil's Advocate. The Devil's Advocate starring Al Pacino and Keanu Reeves. So we'll be, hey, no biting. Do not bite the host. Do not bite the host. No biting. No, do not bite the host. We'll be doing that. Looks like I'm going to have to reschedule the Menendez private breakdown for supporting members only because there is a personal business to attend to on Saturday, which I was not aware of. I mean, I was, but then I became unaware of it, and then I was made aware of it again. So can't do that. Speaking of Halloween, but join Locals, good group of people over there, and I do contribute content that is exclusive to Locals. And as many of you know, I am a content machine in a good sense. So, hey, now listen, I told you, you're going to get kicked off the set. You're going to get kicked off the set for that. I'll have you escorted out of here. I will have you escorted out of here. That's right. So do you give candy away on Halloween? Do you guys give candy away on Halloween? Question mark. So I live in an area where there are children. The last couple of years, I have not lived in an area where there are children. there are no children in the area that I lived in before, so I never had to worry about Halloween. It's like, But now there are children that live in this area, so I had to get some Halloween candy, and I decided, I just can't give out any Halloween candy. I decided to go online and see what my online candy options were. And the online candy that I decided to purchase are Zots. Anybody ever eat Zots before? So I bought a bag of 100 Zots. I think that should once the Zots are gone, they're gone. And I don't think we're gonna have 100 kids show up here at the house. But I'm sure that most of those kids had never had a fucking Zot before. I'm a little evil. Oh, mommy, what's this? No, honey. It looks like some kind of a hard candy. Be careful when you chew it, because hard candies might hurt your teeth. Maybe if you just suck on it for a bit, make it softer. That sounds a little weird. It will, you can chew it. And then bang, it hit the center of the Zot. Look out. So we're going Zots this year. Okay. So we get into the weather. Changes. How is everybody today? How are you how are you dealing with the madness? Have we reached peak madness yet? I don't even think we're close. We're not even close to peak madness. Look at this chart. Holy smokes. Man, if you had a child born during this time, you got a complex being on your hands. Oh, look at that thing, man. Okay, so what do we have here? We got a grand triangle going on with Mercury and Mars right there. Boom, bada boom. Then what is happening here? At the moon, we'll go moon. Very so moon in Libra. Yeah, so moon in Libra. This is a very weird, just momentarily kind of out of sign grand trine. Moon in Libra early in the day, and then we have trining Pluto, and then trining Uranus. So we have basically a imagined star here, right? And looks like two interconnected kites as well. Man, this is real. There's a lot of potential today. I mean, clearly there's a grand cross still floating around in the sky. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, bang, 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 bada bomb, bada bang. There's a lot happening here. Like I just look and say, where do I start? Where do I start? Okay, why don't we start with this? At least at the moment of this transmission, we're dealing with double Scorpio. Sun at 8 degrees, Sun at 6 degrees, ascendant at 8 degrees. So the Scorpionic energy is very thick today. And it is participating in some of that square action. It's still squaring Pluto. I don't, how do I say this? Most of the time, I don't have a real problem with Scorpio energy. Now, that sun is going to duck into my 12th house. And a lot of times when that happens, for me, I kind of like to duck out of sight. Out of sight, out of mind. If I could take that entire transit with the sun going through my 12th house off, I would do it. But I can't. Because I have duties and responsibilities. And I have to finish those on a daily basis. So the sun, Pluto, it's weird. Like Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio. We started to talk about this on Sunday night if you were there for Sunday night show. But Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio. So when you get into a Sun-Pluto square, and the Sun is in Scorpio, it can go one of two ways, right? The energy can be so fixed and fixated that, how would I describe it? You ever been around somebody who tweaks, like a tweaker? Like tweakers will get obsessed with certain things. Like they will get obsessed with like one thing, right? They'll just get really super obsessed with it, and to the exclusion of everything else. And it may not even be like a major thing. They'll get really super obsessed with it. To me, this is the Sun Pluto square. Now, if you are obsessed about the right thing, I am not anti-obsession, by the way. You'll find this in the course if you have a copy of my course. I talk about how obsession is it is really the fuel for mastery. Because if you're obsessed about something, you will learn it because you want to. It's a I would call it a healthy form of obsession. There's unhealthy forms of obsession as well. Like if you're obsessed with staying skinny at all costs and you have an eating disorder, that's a bad obsession. But if you're just like totally into the films of Orson Welles, and all you want to do is just watch nothing but Orson Welles movies over and over and over again, and learn how, like, the angles of the shot and lighting and character development or whatever, right? You'll learn how to be a good filmmaker. It's the nature of obsession. And when we get this Sun Pluto square, we're really dealing, and it's kind of coming out of the 3 days from now, the sun would be out of that square. So we're still in the realm of obsession. And I would say that if you have to put your energy into something where you're going to see it through to some form of completion, this is actually not a bad energy. Now, some people will say, well, why don't you let that go? Let it go. Let it go. This is not this is not one of those times where it's like, oh yeah, I'll let it. No, you can't really let it go. Again, there's the negative, the shadow side of not letting something go. Like that's when you're in Dave Chappelle when keeping it real goes wrong territory. But there's another side. Like yesterday, ever since Uranus went into Taurus, my technology has become so befuddled. There's always something that's fucking up the rhythm of my day. Uranus is in my 6th house. It's been disruptive. Even though there's been some pretty good transits in my natal chart, it's still disruptive. So yesterday I was on the phone with my cell phone provider. You don't want to know the details, but I was on that phone call for at least an hour. That's just with the people I'm supposed to be talking to. But that doesn't include the 20 minutes I spent trying to find those people. And that's obsession, right? Because if there's something you have to fix and you have to get through it, even if it is at the boiling point, which is where we've been with this Sun-Mars square. By the way, this Mars square today is really kicking hard in Kamala Harris's Sun, a Moon opposition. So today is one of those days where she's either going to, come out swinging like Mike Tyson and win people over, or her act will be so over the top and angry, which has been where she's been going, by the way, that it will turn even more people off. Today's energy is pretty intense, I would say, all around. Although the sun is, again, starting to move away. So how do you deal with impatience, which is the Sun-Mars square, while you're still, literally banging away to get the results that you need because they're not really efficiently or sufficiently. But by the way, customer service has become a joke, an absolute joke. And I can tell you 9 times out of 10 who I'm going to be speaking with on the other end. Invariably, they're always going to call me Mr. Robert, which I don't have a problem with. It sounds nice, Mr. Roberts. Mr. Robert, can you please give me your phone number, Mr. Robert? Thank you, Mr. Robert. I'm sorry, but this is what's going on. Right? Like we're locked into this thing, and you gotta keep pushing through. But on the other side, Sun Mars, not a lot of patience. So you have to work it out. I say exercise is good. Today's one of those exercise days. If you have the ability to get up and you're feeling tension or frustration, go work it out. For some people, it's just a matter of walking. Other people need to go to the gym, right? I would say work it out, work it out, work it out, work it out. So you don't get too frustrated and want to stick your hands through the phone and want to choke somebody. Patience is in short supply. Now, the sun is moving into this trine with Saturn, which gives you a bit more endurance. Like, okay, if I just do this and this and this and this, there's a finish line. Nobody's going to give you a ribbon, by the way, or a cupcake when you get these things done. It's just the way it is. Like you won't get a trophy. But I like the engagement of the sun with Saturn, and it's adulting. It's adulting energy. Today I got to go down to the guys on the corner, Dumb and Dumber, who've been trying to fix my truck for the better part of 2 months now. And I got to go down there and then deal with them because now they're moving and they have no backup plan for my truck, which they have not fixed, which means it's probably coming back to my place because it's not going to their place, their new place. No, it's not. So got it. That's another finish line kind of moment, right? And so it's a weird combination today of not letting go of the things that you have to get done, finding some measure of patience so you don't want to strangle a motherfucker. And then with the Sun Saturn trine, staying attuned to the task at hand and the goal at hand. And in some ways, having to even exercise your own authority. Because you guys can relate to this. There was a time in our society when there were people who knew how to do things, and we held them in a certain regard, whether it was a mechanic or a doctor. They're both kind of the same thing, right? The mechanic is the doctor for your car, the doctor is the mechanic for your body, kind of the same, right? And what's happened is that both of them have succumbed to the worst aspects of their profession and trade. The doctor doesn't do any real major diagnoses anymore. I mean, they do, but if they have to have a solution to the thing that they're diagnosing, they'll refer to the insurance codes. It's kind of like the codes that come up on your car. It's not too dissimilar. You're the check engine light, and there's a code for that, right? There's a code for the check engine light in your body. And both of them use a similar system. Now, the difference is that the doctor will charge you a hell of a lot more sometimes. And theoretically, they have a bit more training and a bit more culpability, but it's getting kind of wonky in that area as well. Right. So what do we do now? We don't really trust the medical profession. So we self-diagnose. We go online, and you people in chat are really good at this. You're very health savvy. I go through comments. A lot of times there are just robust conversations going on in parallel to the show about health, which I love. I think it's great. You're swapping tips and talking about, different herbs or vitamins or supplements, right? So we have become a society, or at least a certain portion of us, that are engaged in self-diagnosis for our body. Why? Because these other people just have these codes that they have to abide by. It's the same thing, unfortunately, with cars now. We used to take our cars to mechanics because, they knew that car inside and out. When I was a kid, I had a Fiat, kid being like 20, 19. And what did I do? I took it to a Fiat guy. This guy specialized in Fiats and Alfa Romeos. He knew what the fuck he was doing. He really knew what he was doing because there were cars in there all the time. He was very busy until they stopped making them. And that's where I went. And these guys, they were cool. They were kind of younger dudes, and they knew what they were doing. And I get there, they knew how to tune my Fiat and everything. It's gone now. These people have gone away. Now we have to self-diagnose our cars. I had to self-diagnose the fucking truck down here because they couldn't figure out how to fix it. I had to figure out how to fix it. I'm not going to fix it because I'm not into cranking wrenches and shit like that, right? But I had to figure it out. Just like you have to figure out what's going on with your body. So we're in this phase right now where there's like a lot of responsibility on our hands because the rest of the world has gone into decline around these things. We cannot trust these legacy systems, and the people who are part of the legacy systems is very rare. If you have a really good doctor or functional medicine person or a really good mechanic, it's very, very rare to find these people because they can't keep their health, at least on the mechanic side. So we're in one of those days. I can go all around the spirograph here and get into all of this, but I would say that the overall theme today is just taking care of business. And if you have to do it yourself, to the degree that you can do it, do it. Do it. The Sun-Mars square is the kind of the penultimate of frustration. Now, on a positive side, Mercury's at 23 Scorpio, which I really like. I like Mercury in Scorpio. It's very deep and figures things out, right? It's like it goes into the the nooks and crannies and crevices of things, like what's in there, what's curling inside of there. Like whenever Mercury's in Scorpio, I feel like I have sort of this extra sensory kind of ability to get beneath the surface of things. And right now, it's kind of separating from Saturn, but it's also entwined with Mars. So this is one of those transits where once you understand what you need to do not sit on it. Don't sleep on it. You got to move. Right? You got to move. Like John Lee Hooker, you got to move. So this is waste no time. Mars in Cancer is very hunchy. It's connected to intuition, and it's very somatic. And if you kind of deny it, you're going to have some disruption in your body, more likely. But I do think that this is this helps a little bit of patience here with this Mercury Saturn trine and this Mercury Mars trine, which is once you kind of okay, I'll use an analogy. Let's say you're canoeing, right? And or kayaking, whatever you want. You're in a river, and then you kind of run into something. It could be like some rocks and maybe some fallen branches and stuff. You're kind of up against it, right? And you have to physically kind of move things out of the way. Some of you who've done this know what I'm talking about. And then once you move those things out of the way, boom, you take off. And you have to be ready for that because you're kind of rocking back and forth, and you're trying to dislodge this debris that you've kind of come upon. And then once you do that, there's an acceleration that takes place. So there's a lot of kind of energy around that as well, because this is all about blockage, right? But once you remove the blockage, get ready because it takes off very quickly. And you can be, you can put some distance between you and the blocks and the difficulties you're experiencing. So it's not like we just have these Gordian knots that we can't solve. There are ways to solve it, but you have to really think through it in a deep. For me, Mercury in Scorpio understands how things are deeply interconnected, for better or for worse. Now we have this opposition coming in with Uranus, and I think this could work in a couple different ways. And it's there now, and as we move through the next few days. The Uranus-Mercury opposition would be like a lightning bolt. right? It can be like a lightning bolt. It can be like a, this, this inspiration from the heavens that cracks down upon your brain. And you're like, oh, I get it, right? I get it. And oftentimes it can be quite shocking, because we're dealing with hard assets and soft assets, other people's money, your own money. Some of this moves into the realm of just finance in general. And I find it interesting that both the Trump side and the Harris side are sort of jockeying with these crypto partners. Like on the Harris side, they have XRP and XLM, which is a stable coin. And then on the Trump side, you have the PayPal mafia. And the PayPal mafia, of course, is Elon Musk and Peter Thiel. And they have their own version of the new coin, or the coin of the realm that's coming, right? And then, of course, you have the whole BRICS thing, which I think is connected to XRP and XLM story. But this is part of it, right? It's kind of like understanding where things are heading in terms of assets and resources. And again, once again, Saturn gives this ability for long-range planning, right? The long-range plan. And it's a Sun-Saturn trine. Mercury's in trine with Neptune. It wasn't trine with Saturn. But still part of this grand trine. And you need to move on what your gut is really telling you. Very important. He who hesitates is lost, as they say. We still have the Venus-Saturn square, which can be very limiting inside a relationship, but at the same time, those limitations can be used to strengthen and build and bond with relationship, make the ties that bind stronger. The Venus opposition with Jupiter is going to be interesting. We won't be there for, isn't that election night? I think that might be election night. Venus moves about 2 degrees per day. So I think it's around election night. Venus and Jupiter opposition. Wow. That's going to be crazy. And then the moon, which is right here in Libra, will be in Sagittarius and be conjunct Trump's moon, which is eclipsed. Right? There's a lunar eclipse in this chart. And so astrologically, all of this points to a Trump victory, but we know that, especially with this massive amount of interference in this chart. I mean, there's a lot of good things here, but there's also a lot of blood on the tracks. A lot of this we covered on Sunday night. It's kind of a version of the Sunday night chart, but with an updated position of the moon here. Mars trine Neptune. That's really creative. So, in as much as you're figuring out what to do, and we'll readjust this here. We'll put Neptune in the mix, which is again very inspirational. It's very, very inspirational. So once you figure out kind of how to move or what to do, and leading into that very instinctual Cancerian energy, there's also a creative way of going about it. I like Mars Neptune trines. I think they're very underrated. And people that have Mars Neptune trines generally tend to be highly creative people. Sometimes their output can be kind of, how would I say it, sort of tidal. Like there were times when they would have higher amounts of sort of creative potential. And then other times, just like the tide would go out, it would be lower. When I was a kid, I was into writing and writing like poetry. I would write my own comedy bits as a kid. And I don't know how old was I, 12, 13, 14 years old, somewhere in that area. And I noticed that there would be a time when I would feel very inspired. And you have to just go right in and start to write the thing down, right? And then I realized that like it was a window that was open, and I didn't want to waste the window. So I figured that you just keep doing it until you were done, technically done, whatever that was, because you didn't want to take, you did not want to take advantage of the flow. And I knew that at some point the flow would close down. So this is really what we're talking about here with Mercury trine Mars, Mercury trine Neptune, Mars trine Neptune. So while we're going through the slog, right, we also have this creative potential to get through it in a way that is, at the very least, more interesting. Because it's part of the human experience. We want to make our lives more interesting. You know, if you're somebody who's creative, the last thing you want is a fucking dull existence. So, well, how can I make this different? How can I make it better? You know, are we just going to run out the same meal every night? You know, I mean, this is this. So we're cultivating some things here, right? We're cultivating some intense responsibility that we have to manage and get through. But at the same time, there's also this other potential and opportunity that allows us to not be robotic through the process. So these are, you know, I could spend another couple hours on this chart and just go back and forth, back and forth. But that's not going to happen. Why? Because there's a limitation on time with this experience. But the other thing with the Mercury-Uranus opposition is sometimes you will receive news that is unexpected. Now, again, because of the position of Mercury, you can do a lot with it. It's sextile in Pluto, trining Neptune, and then trining Mars. So if you receive news that's unexpected, do not be paralyzed. Do not be one of those people that stares into the eyes of Medusa. No turning to stone, right? Like you can receive the news, but don't get stuck there. Stay fluid, right? Stay fluid. You know, our friend Leanne, who comes in the chat every now and then, has this technique, which is really interesting. And most humans go into two things: fight or flight, and then the other one is this paralytic state. And most humans go in the paralytic state when they experience some kind of trauma or tension or disruption in their environment. When really the best thing to do would be either, you know, fight or flee. A lot of people just get stuck and frozen, which is not a good thing, right? So this is one of those aspects where it helps you get unstuck very quickly when you receive news that is probably unexpected, which is this Mercury-Uranus opposition. You know, in terms of the big world, it's. I mean, look at the world right now. There's so much weird chaos, high strange. This Sun Mars square, Sun Pluto square, to me is also very warlike. It's very, very warlike, and you know, clearly there's a major war going on in the Middle East. And most people don't know that, well, we're actually a part of it. More of a part of it than just turning a blind eye and watching parts of the Middle East just get flattened. So this is, I mean, I'm just, you know, kind of going up a few levels here and starting to look at it from the mundane perspective. There's a lot happening. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of, but there's also some, again, this is one of these charts where you can kind of see everything, you know, you can see behind the veil. It's like one of those, it's like Westworld with Yul Brynner, the first one. You pull off his mask and you can see all the wires and everything. And this is what's happening now in reality. You can see all the wires. And it's like, wow, look at this, look at this, look at this. But at the same time, like the chaos that brought us to this moment where the mask is pulled off and you can see the wiring, some of which is intact and some of which is not intact. It's not necessarily bad. right? Because there's other things going on here which can help us move through the conditions of this time. And this is a very important period, right? This pre-election period is so important because we live in this world where our emotions are generated, and it almost feels as if there's a massive turbine that turns our emotions into fuel. And this thing called reality is a byproduct of that in a lot of ways. So as we move into this period on November 5th, which is a very, very fixed period of time, remember it's Scorpio, who we are, how we comport ourselves, everything is important because it determines the fixity of the next 4 years, at least in this country. So just keep that in mind. I guess the bottom line here is that you matter. Like your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, they all matter. Don't think you're insignificant. Like that's the worst thing. Oh, well, this is just a simulation. There's some truth to the sort of the neuroplasticity of reality, but it's not a complete simulation. That's a demoralizing trick, right? Oh, none of this matters. It's just a simulation. Life is scripted. Everything's run by about 300 people, and some of these things are true. But on the other hand, you cannot let them completely define who you are, because that whole script is really created to completely immobilize you and demoralize you. Now, on the far end of that spectrum, right, you're at the center of everything. The world revolves around you, and everything matters. And that's not entirely true either. So we're in the Libra moon moment right here, where you find the center. You find the center, and you do count. You do matter. Your vote may not count. Your vote may not matter. I'm just being half joking here, but you do. Don't forget that. You do. And some of the most mundane acts that you can perform on a daily basis have reverberating and far-reaching effects in ways that you may not even know. Keep that in mind. All right, let's get into the star of the day, the True Hemp Science star of the day. We'll throw our banner up here. Yeah, it was kind of a tricky star of the day. It was like, okay, who do I want to talk about? Who has the sort of the most punch? Well, it came down to Joseph Goebbels, or Goebbels, Ryan Goebbels, who was basically the propagandist for World War II. Now, this segment is brought to you by True Hemp Science. And True Hemp Science is your one-stop shop for all things CBD. In fact, I'm going to have some right now. You know what I'm going to have? I'm going to have some Synapto. This is G22 right there. I'm going to have a little dose of Synapto. This is one of my favorites. I love how it tastes too. Anyway, you can get Synapta and any of the other fine products. Here's another one, Solara, over at truehempscience.com. And all you got to do is spend $100 or more. Type in 15MINS, and you will get a goodie bag with all this cool stuff thrown in with your order. It's like a little second order. And $150 more gets you free shipping. There's always a 30-day money-back guarantee. And 15MINS is your code. So support our friend Chris. He's a Main Street business. These are the types of entrepreneurs and people that are at the heart of what we do here not just in this country, but in the world in general. So support him and get healthy in the process. All right, let's talk about Goebbels, a very complex character. You know, I was looking at him. He doesn't look very German. When I look at him, he doesn't look very German. But you have to admit, they had that's a badass leather coat. As the kids would say, that has some grip. So where do we find his ministry of communication, propaganda? 11th house. He's connecting with the masses, right? This is the 11th house right there. Just like I'm connecting with you through the 11th house. And he has Pluto and Neptune there, part of fortune. Also, Black Moon Lilith will focus mainly on the part of fortune, Pluto, Neptune. And it's in Gemini, which is communication. And what's it doing? Well, it's connecting with his Mars in Scorpio, which is right in there with Pluto and right in there with Neptune. And hey, he's creative. He's a creative chap. Mars, Neptune trine. Pluto, Neptune are retrograde. So interesting in terms of messaging with the retrograde. There's this saying that if you tell a lie enough, it'll become the truth, which is supposedly attributed to Goebbels, although it's not. And I've looked at this quote for a long time, and it is associated with, but I think there may be a variation of that, but he doesn't come right out and say it. However, with Neptune and Pluto in the 11th house, there is some kind of attribute that goes along with that. He does have Mercury in Libra, which is interesting, not in Scorpio, but in Libra. And his Mercury does trine Pluto. So Mercury in Libra, I'm sorry, it's Venus in Libra, that's my bad. Mercury's in Scorpio. Venus in Libra trine Scorpio. So that's interesting because with Venus, what he's trying to do is he's trying to have a fair and quote unquote balanced relationship theoretically with the propaganda, although I don't think it necessarily works out that well. However, the sentiments that would come through that would be quite interesting in some ways. So if you look at sort of the history of like what was going on in World War II, you had somebody like Leni Riefenstahl, who's very interesting as a filmmaker. And no doubt she had a relationship with Goebbels, right? So now we're talking about the people that he would work with in order to produce the sort of the news and the glorification of the Third Reich. And Riefenstahl is a very interesting person because, you know, after they have the Nuremberg trials, she's still around. And this is the woman who did the film Will to Power, which is, you haven't seen it, it's remarkable. Leni Riefenstahl is one of the great filmmakers because she pioneers all these wild techniques of capturing footage. And a lot of it is done during the Olympics. I believe it's the 1936 Olympics in Germany, in Berlin. And then there's also the capturing the speeches and all this other stuff, right? So this would be the relationship with the people that he uses to create the messaging of the so-called Third Reich. And this guy's very intense, right? Mercury, Sun, Mars, all in Scorpio. Chiron is in Scorpio. And he's an all or nothing character, right? All or nothing. And for better or worse. What's interesting here is the midheaven, which is in Aries. And of course, this whole idea of the Aryan nation, the myth of the Aryans, you know, plays a part in the remythologizing of Germany. And who's in charge of the remythologizing of Germany? It's this guy, Goebbels. And he's got Jupiter in the third house, which is again communication. What I think is, I guess we can really get granular here, right? Germany, when you look at sort of the messaging and the quote unquote propaganda or the narrative of the Third Reich, they're both looking backwards and forwards. Backwards in the sense that, you know, they're descendants of the like these Aryan beings, right? Like descendants of Valhalla and Wagner and the March of the Valkyries. And, you know, there's this sort of historical placement of the Germanic people that tie them to a Hyperborean race, right? And that is their that is going to be their kind of their new religion of the state. But Juno is also about something new. So they're going with the past and something old, which is Vesta, but they're also going with something new, which is Juno, and that's kind of reconfiguring and resampling all those things to create a new mythology. And you can't have like which. And look, I'm not making a comparison to Trump and Hitler, although many people will and have, but you can't have a movement without a mythology. So even with Trump, something as basic as "Make America Great Again" is a mythology. You know, and he's leaning into the past. Like there was a time when America was great, probably during his childhood, 1950s. And then that moment in time or that vague memory where theoretically America was this great place is cast into the future. So, but this is the difference between Goebbels and the Third Reich and Trump. I don't believe that Trump has a handle on the future. He has a handle on the past because he has all these planets in Cancer, and he can look back and he can pull from a more nostalgic period. But I don't think Trump has a very good handle on the future. Whereas I would say Goebbels and the Third Reich and the Nazis had a much better handle on the future because it was a future looking, forward looking sort of paradigm, replete with V2 rockets, right? Everything really looks like it's pulled from a Philip K. Dick novel. It's very futuristic. You know, you look at even their fashion, right? Everything is like, wow, where did these guys come from? Right? If you look at sort of the other armies in Europe, you know, they look, yeah, like the English and their kind of doughboy look. I mean, whatever. You know, the French, do they even have an army? You know, so this is what they're working on in the Third Reich. They're pulling from the past in sort of these historical kind of roots, right? Mythical roots, but they're molding it into a system for the future. And I feel like you can see this in Goebbels' chart right here with Jupiter and Vesta and Juno. Does it work ultimately? No, it doesn't work. But that's the plan. He's got this true note in Aquarius, which is all about the future. You know, he has a relationship with the future. He's going to, again, cast this mythology as not just a remnant of the past, but blazing a trail forward for Germany and the rest of Europe, right? That doesn't work. No, it comes tumbling down. Also, you can see that future past combination here with Saturn and Uranus and Saturn and Sagittarius. Sagittarius is, you know, it's religious and it has to do with systems. And Saturn is the sort of the definer of that, like the high priest or the Hierophant. And Uranus, again, is about the future. And he's got Uranus in Scorpio, which is exalted. So again, we see the future past or the past. Saturn isn't really the past. Like Saturn is the mediator between the past and the future. But this Saturn is kind of mainstreaming. And so there's this Uranus-Saturn conjunction, which is bringing these radical ideas into the mainstream, right? He's got the moon in Capricorn. He's kind of heartless. Right? There's not a lot of emotion there. And it squares Venus and it squares Jupiter. And if he's going to experience emotion, it's going to be heady with Mercury conjunct the Sun. And he's going to experience emotion through action, which again is connected to Mars. I mean, if you wanted to have a guy in your Reich who would play the role of the Ministry of Information, Propaganda, whatever, this guy's got a great chart for it. Because he's not only channeling everything through that 11th house, which is the message to the masses. There's this thing he's got going on, right? He's creating a mythology, and so it doesn't work. At the end of the day, it doesn't work. Leo rising, he's got this South Node conjunct as ascendant, so I think there's also this connection to like sun worship. This is very Apollonian, and he's able to connect into that, right? But that's really not what he's supposed to be doing. What he's supposed to be doing is becoming for lack of a better term, like a channel for the future. Very, very, very Aquarian. Anyway, there's your True Hemp Science star of the day, Joseph Goebbels. Does not look very German, if you ask me. All right. That brings us to the end of the show. And that means that I'll be doing another show. I'll be over on Boxcast. I'll be over on Rumble. Those links, by the way, are in the show notes. If you haven't hit like, please do. If you have not subscribed, in many cases, you've been unsubscribed. So it might help if you check your subscription and make sure you're still subscribed. Also, if you feel like you'd like to buy me a cup of coffee, you can do that. There's a link in there. My last sip. This is to Rolanda. Come on over, join Locals, become a supporting member. I produce a lot of content. I don't put my content behind a paywall unless it's something I'm doing specifically for the supporting members of Locals. And I think that's it. I think that's the order of business. In the meantime, treat each other well. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to step what's possible. God bless one and all, and bye for now.